All right, I'm here. Twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com/live. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday. We've got a lot to get to. Appreciate you guys joining the show today. My name is Josh. This is the JMULL SHOW, 110sportsmedia.com/live. Dude, what are we going to do about the Dodgers? What are we going to do? How many more times are they going to be clearly the best baseball team on the planet and not really even seriously, they're not seriously sniffing the World Series right now? Down 3-1. Down 3-1. I don't see a world in which it happens. I don't. The Astros outraid the Rays last night. We'll get to that here in a few minutes, as well as the Dodgers and the Braves in more depth. Let me set the agenda for you real quick. A bit of a shorter show today. Not too much shorter, but a few minutes shorter. A previous commitment getting in the way of the show a little bit today, but that's okay. We'll still talk for 45 minutes or so. We'll start with the LCSs on both sides, American League and the National League, Braves, Dodgers, Rays, Astros. We'll get to that more extensively here in a couple minutes. Le'Veon Bell went to the Chiefs. Can you imagine if a few years ago I mean, it wasn't all that long ago that Le'Veon Bell was considered one of the best running backs in football. Now he's getting released from the Jets, but he's still Le'Veon Bell, and he chose to go to the Chiefs, and that's a little terrifying for multiple reasons, but we'll talk about that in about 20 minutes or so, as well as more COVID updates. The Indianapolis Colts getting several positive tests, so we'll take a look at those as well. The Podium, that'll come up. That'll be last on the show today. The Podium, the best, inspired by this Dodgers team, the best baseball teams of the last 20 years to not win a championship. There's some pretty good baseball teams on this list, and we'll get to that in about 35 minutes or so. Hit some FYI real quick and get out of here for the day. But that's the agenda. Where I want to start, like I mentioned, the Clayton Kershaw gets outdueled by a rookie, and the Braves are up 3-1 in the NLCS. Bryce Wilson, 7 career starts, 74 pitches across 6 innings. A lot of them were fastballs, man. He's clearly a presence on the mound. Big dude, aggressive on the mound. And he just went right at these Dodgers hitters. He knew the wind was on his side. And everything I read, there's some sort of comment about how, well, you know, he had the wind. Yeah, Clayton Kershaw had the wind too. The Braves hitters had to deal with the wind too, and they put 10 runs up on the board and 14 hits in this game. The Dodgers mustered, I believe, 4 runs. Excuse me, not 4 runs, 4 hits. He made one mistake, Bryce Wilson did in this game. Over his 6 innings, Edwin Rios hit a second inning home run. Kershaw made a bunch of mistakes, ended up with a line that looks pretty ugly. 5 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. You know, I genuinely don't understand why he's so ineffective in the playoffs compared to how good he is in the regular season, especially with nobody in the stands. Like, I understand the pressure of 35,000 screaming fans wherever you might be playing in the World Series or in the NLCS. I get all that. But there's literally no pressure, external pressure from inside the ballpark. I mean, there are a few fans, right? Because this one's in Texas and you can have fans over there. But first of all, we're talking about fans in Texas, we're not in Atlanta, We're not in LA at Dodger Stadium. So if there was a year for for Kershaw to actually perform in the playoffs the way that he should, at least, it would be this year. Because a lot of the pressure isn't there. You don't have the pressure from the fans immediately. I mean, hell, the Dodgers are at the point where they have an obscene amount of pressure before the series even starts, because everyone, including myself, this is the Dodgers World Series to lose. But at least when you get to the ballpark, you're not seeing that in your face quite as much. It's quite impressive, really. I mean, he went toe-to-toe with Bryce Wilson until the 6th inning, which is a silly thing to have to, which is not what you want to have to say about Clayton Kershaw. I mean, he was fine until the 6th, when the Braves strung together several doubles and were able to get the job done that way. Just trading places with the guy on second base, driving in more runs, and then all of a sudden, it's a Dodgers lineup that, apart from inning 1 of game 3, has been useless. And now, what Bryce Wilson has done for the Braves is put them in a position where tomorrow they can have a bullpen game and try to piece something together. And then they still have, on full rest, Max Fried and Ian Anderson ready to go for games 6 and 7. Full rest for those guys. The best case scenario here was for the Dodgers to win game 4 convincingly. Just go out there and absolutely light Bryce Wilson up. Light him up. And then really show how much the momentum was on their side of things. And then at that point, you have to think that the Braves put Max Fried on the mound in game 5 on short rest. Because you certainly don't want to be in a situation where you're down 3-2 and you have to beat the Dodgers twice in a row. That's a situation nobody wants to be in. Now they don't have to worry about that. Now they get their best guys who just smoked this Dodgers lineup 2 games in a row, ready for games 6 and 7 on full rest. And, you'll have Walker Buehler and Tony Gonsolin. But we saw what the Braves did to Gonsolin. Now, I guess there's an argument that you'd rather have them instead of Clayton Kershaw, and I guess this could be part of it. I mean, Kershaw, assuming he was going to start game 2 of this series, didn't get to start when he was supposed to start, and I'll give you that to a certain extent, that maybe that is a reason that he was not quite as sharp, I guess. But he was fine in the early innings. So I'm not sure that I give validation to that quite as much as I would otherwise if he was just out of the gates shaky. And then you add, to the fact that, the Dodgers pitching hasn't been, it was really solid in the first 2 games. The Braves pitching was just better. Get a shaky one, then it was good in game 1, not as good in game 2. They didn't, they could have thrown me on the mound in game 3 and still would have won that game. And it gave, it's almost to the point where these pitchers are, how much help do they really have? Now, giving up a 6th spot in the 6th inning ain't it, Chief? But these Dodgers bats aren't showing up the way they need to. The only player in the top 6 of the batting order to get a hit was Justin Turner in Game 4. We're talking about a batting order that Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, Cody Bellinger, Max Muncy. I could continue. But that's what we're talking about here. And none of them, I mean, Corey Seager and Mookie Betts at the top of the lineup. 1-2. 0 of 8. 0-4-8. What? Against Bryce Wilson, who threw like 15 and 2/3 innings this year. That was his... He the last time he pitched was the end of the regular season for the Braves. Hadn't pitched since. And just goes out there and gets the job done against Clayton Kershaw. And that's going to make this look even worse for Kershaw. Is that he got outdueled by a rookie who threw 15 and 2/3 innings this year. No, there's part of me that's like, okay, this is silly. I mean, maybe we should look at the Dodgers offense before we blame Kershaw for Bryce Wilson's performance. But still, the optics of it are not good. and the Dodgers, apart from the first inning of Game 3, their bats have been non-existent. I mean, they only scored 15 in Game 3. Quote-unquote only. And I realized that them trying really hard at the plate was not something that needed to happen for them to win that game after you go up 11. By the way, the idea of taking them out in the home half of the first and having an 11-run cushion is laugh-out-loud funny. For what it's worth. But apart from that first inning where they set an MLB postseason record for most runs in a single inning, they've been completely uninspiring. Completely uninspiring. And now, and I said this on the last show, now the Braves have put themselves in a position where they don't need to win another game with their, whether it's a bullpen game or a guy like Bryce Wilson on the mound. They don't need to. They got one. And that's where the Braves are going to win this series. You know, even when they were up 2-0, I was thinking, you know, in Game 3, in that first inning, okay, if the Dodgers really have this much momentum, and then you have to put somebody like Bryce Wilson on the mound in Game 4, and then you're either going bullpen, or if they really have a lot of momentum, you're throwing Max Fried out there, but it's on short rest, and then that's where the dominoes start to fall quickly if things go wrong. And then you can throw Ian Anderson out there for Game 6, or you roll the dice and hopefully you get him for Game 7. Either way, it makes the puzzle a lot more difficult to put together if you're the Braves. Now you're playing with house money. You throw the bullpen out there in Game 5. If you lose, oh well. If you win, great. Now it's been, by the time Max Fried takes the mound again, and then after that Ian Anderson, they'll have an abundance of rest for the World Series. And then you're feeling really good about the idea of them having to pitch on short rest if they have to pitch on short rest. Considering how good this Dodgers team is, you can't write them off quite yet. But this is about as close to over as a series can get against a team like the Dodgers. They have to go through Max Fried and Ian Anderson and back-to-back games, and they have to win Game 5 first. That's a steep hill to have to climb. For the first time this postseason, the Rays got out clutch hit. They got out-rayed. And it resulted in the Astros staying alive. Carlos Correa said, you know, I'm going to end it. That's some confidence there. You know, once upon a time I was, you know, I don't even know how old I was. I was 8 or 9. Young. 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. And told a soccer coach that if he put me back in the game, I was going to score the winning goal. I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but your boy is kind of nice with it, and we found a way to get the goal. but that's some confidence, and there's a big difference between a must-win game 5 of an ALCS and a pee-wee soccer game at the age of 9. But Correa, hit, honestly, might be the first truly bad pitch I've seen Nick Anderson throw all season. I mean, it wasn't on the outer edge, but it, gave Correa plenty of space to extend his arms. It was a fastball up in the zone, and Correa just smoked it. Never a doubt out to center field. And the Rays got some clutch hitting in this game. I mean, G-Man Choi with the game tying home run in the top of the 8th inning. So they definitely got some of those hits, but the Rays are now were 16-6 coming into this game in one run affairs. 16-7 now, but the Rays live on timely hitting and good pitching. And they lost this game 4-3, so the pitching wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. Let's get that clear first and foremost. But the Rays are the best at finding ways to win baseball games. They lost 4-3, 7 hits on their side, 6 runs on the Houston side. They had an error in this game, which is not, the end of the world. But the Astros outrated the Rays. And we'll see what that means for Game 6. I still put the Rays. The Rays strike me as the type of team who doesn't give up a 3-0 lead in the playoffs. I find it hard to believe that they're as clutch as they are and as good as they are. I mean, they've lost the last 2 games by a combined score 8-6. And this is, part of where the Rays, I think most people weren't giving the Rays enough credit, is because they can lose a lot of these games 4-3. Like they can get really good pitching, or at least functional pitching. You go out and your starter's good, but if your bullpen has even 1 or 2 hiccups, like Nick Anderson giving up a home run like that, then you can be in trouble. This was a bullpen game for the Rays. Curtis, just an inning and a third. He started on the mound. Fleming, three innings, 3 hits, 2 runs. Sluggers came in for 2 and 2/3, didn't give up a run. And then Nick Anderson for an inning and a third gave up the lone run on the Correa home run. So a bullpen game, and that's at least encouraging, that they didn't waste a game where they have somebody like Blake Snell on the mound and lose that kind of game. But this series is officially interesting. The other part of this is the Astros winning this in the bottom of the 9th allowed Dusty Baker to not have to put Valdez in the game, which is a good thing. He was warming up in the bullpen in the bottom of the 9th and didn't have to throw him out there in a game that was also a bullpen game for the Astros. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pitchers. Nobody threw more than 2 innings, and that was Garcia who started the game. But, hopefully we get a Dodgers win in Game 5 so that series is interesting. At least makes you sweat. We get Max Fried against the Dodgers again, and that's fun to watch. And this Astros team is officially threatening. And we'll see what that means in Game 6, if they can tie it up or if the Rays can move on. And in their third chance to advance to the World Series, can actually get it done. Coming up next, Le'Veon Bell is a Chief, and there are more COVID updates in the NFL. Thank you so much for watching the JMULL Show on a Friday. We'll be right back. Twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com. Welcome back to the JMULL Show on a Friday. Twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com. Thanks so much for joining us on a Friday. Patrick Mahomes and the defending Super Bowl champs, they were doing all right. Apart from the hiccup against the Raiders, still 4-1 this season. .13th in the league in rushing, 119 yards per game, and 10th at 4.5 yards per carry. But most of that came from week 1 when Clyde Edwards-Helaire rushed for 138 yards and a touchdown against Houston. Since then, the Chiefs are 19th in the league and don't have a rushing touchdown from a running back. Damian Williams, of course, decided to opt out of the 2020-21 season for COVID-19 reasons, which means that the Chiefs needed a weapon at running back. Edwards-Helaire, of course, has been solid, but is also a rookie, and clearly that week 1 performance, calling it an outlier might not be fair, but certainly not what he was going to bring every single week, which I guess could be the definition of an outlier. But they needed some sort of weapon out of the backfield, at least a more consistent one. They get that Le'Veon Bell, a 3-time Pro Bowl selection. He's certainly been disappointing since signing a 4-year, $52.5 million contract with the Jets. But that's also a Jets team that's just bad, first of all. And every single time Sam Darnold got on the field, he seemed to be less confident. And when you don't have a running game, or when you don't have a passing game, it makes the running game a little hard, and vice versa. Having a guy like Le'Veon Bell coming out of the backfield, you can also throw him in the slot. You can also, run pass plays for him out of the backfield. He's a great catching running back, and of course, is a 3-time Pro Bowler. So of course he's good in the ground game. This is still a guy who in 5 seasons with the Steelers rushed for 5,336 yards and had 35 touchdowns. Also had 312 receptions for 2,660 yards and 7 scores. That's a big-time weapon to add to the Chiefs lineup. A big-time weapon to add to the Chiefs lineup. Of course, there are issues with the Chiefs on the defensive side of the ball, and of course, things don't ever go as smoothly as you'd like them to, even for a Super Bowl defending champs who have Patrick Mahomes on their team. But this certainly helps and adds another weapon and at least gives them some sort of a ground game. And when you have a guy that's that versatile coming out of the backfield, and a guy like Andy Reid calling the shots, there's a lot that can go on there. There's certainly Le'Veon Bell making a lot of noise with the Steelers when he wasn't happy. It's clear he wanted to go to a title contender. There's no reason to suggest that the Chiefs aren't going to go to the playoffs again this year, aren't going to compete for a Super Bowl again this year. And if they do and they're winning football games, and that's the best way to keep Le'Veon Bell happy, and there's a lot of reasons to suggest, including Le'Veon Bell, that the Chiefs will win a lot of football games the remainder of this season. The Chiefs need a short yardage running back. They were so bad in short yardage, the Chiefs twice on 4th and 1 plays handed it off to fullback Anthony Sherman, 3rd string back Darwin Thompson. Edwards-Helaire is a lot of fun to watch in space. He's crafty, but he's tiny, and he's certainly not a short yardage back that just needs to power through the line and get a first down. That's certainly not what he's there to do. Le'Veon Bell 6'1", 225, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire 5'7", so tiny. 5'7", 207, so clearly just not the same type of running back. Certainly 5'7", 207, he's got some muscle, some strength to him, of course. That's not something that needs to, that's an obvious thing to say, but they needed a short yardage back. They can also use him in the passing game. They needed some depth at that position as well. They can piece things together. And they had no experience at running back either. Damian Williams, of course, like we said, opted out. Edwards-Helaire played 5 games in the NFL, just being a rookie. And none of the backups, Thompson, Darrell Williams, DeAndre Washington, have ever been a featured back for an extended period of time. So you needed somebody who knew what it meant to come and produce. They needed somebody who knows what it's like to consistently produce as a running back in the NFL. And it'll be interesting to see how they use him, if it's more of a, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still like definitely that guy in, RB1, or if it's more of an RB1A, RB1B with him and Le'Veon Bell. Maybe it's just situation based. I mean, Hilaire's just never on the field for short yardage situations and clear passing situations. Le'Veon Bell is always out there because he's a better catcher out of the backfield. It'll be interesting. But Andy Reid, when you just add weapons like that, I mean, this is an offense that already has Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. You add Le'Veon Bell to that equation, and there are other question marks with this football team, but adding that in the backfield, depth, experience out of the backfield is never a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. Listen, more COVID positive tests. The Indianapolis Colts closed their practice facility Friday after several members of their organization tested positive. They didn't specify number of people who tested positive. The Colts are in the process of confirming the test results and will work remotely. Right now, Indianapolis is scheduled to have a home game against the Cincinnati Bengals at 1 on Sunday. Of course, this on the heels of the Atlanta Falcons closing their facility on Thursday following a second positive test for COVID. Titans played Tuesday following a 16-game layoff. So you saw the Patriots have twice had their original Week 5 matchup against Denver postponed for multiple reasons, namely COVID, 4 positive coronavirus tests by players in the Patriots organization. They are set to play on Sunday, but COVID continues to be an important part of the NFL season. We got to a point with baseball where you weren't seeing it very much. They got it under control. I'm not sure we're ever going to get to that point with the NFL. Not that it's the NFL's fault. I think the NFL, the front office, Roger Goodell, are actually on the positive side of this. We've talked about it before, but the players and organizations need to do a better job following the rules. But hopefully this doesn't result in another postponement, but it seems hard to imagine that it won't result in that. With that being said, COVID clearly going to put its imprint on this season, and we might be getting to the point where they have no choice but to extend this season. You can't have too many more games get postponed and have to move stuff around without adding another week, a couple weeks of buffer. Just maybe you push the playoffs back a couple weeks, and just give 2 universal bye weeks at the end of the season to play games if you need to. Whatever it might be, just give teams time to play their 16. There's no reason not to. Who cares if the Super Bowl is the first week of March instead of the first week of February? Who cares? There's literally no reason to rush it and to not have games completed, to not have teams get their shot at winning the games to make the playoffs that they need to, when there's no real reason. I mean, it's only going to get warmer, and it's not like it's going to get warmer to 95 degrees. You got February, and then for the next 2 months, you have it going from 50 degrees to 80 or 75. There's no reason to rush this, and I think there's a lot of room for the NFL to maneuver. They just need to pull it to actually make it happen, and to actually bite the bullet and adjust the schedule if need be, because it doesn't look like COVID is ever going to. And this is a silly thing to say because, of course, it's not going to, but it doesn't look like it's going to be quite as under control as, for example, baseball got it to, where you were very rarely seeing positive tests impact schedules by the time we got to the end of the regular season. And, of course, the postseason on the Major League Baseball side of things has gone beautifully in terms of COVID cases, and there hasn't been any hiccups there. Coming up next, we're going to wrap up the show with the Podium, the best baseball teams of the last 20 years to not win a World Series. And then we'll do some FY to get out of here on a Friday. You're watching the JMULL Show, 110sportsmedia.com. Welcome back to the JMULL Show on a Friday. Twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com/live. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday. Listen, the Dodgers are about to do it again. On pace to win 116 games if it was a 162 game season. That's absolutely ridiculous. They're now down 3-1 to the Braves. They're about to be on that list of teams, the best teams ever to not win a World Series. This team is that good. On paper, they are that good. For what it's worth, 116 wins would have tied the most wins of all time in the regular season. There's a team on this list on the podium that's actually the gold medal that is the best baseball team of the last 20 years. I just did the last 20 years. Too many teams to pick from if we did in MLB history. So I just did the last 20 years because we had some damn good baseball teams in the last 20 years not win a World Series. We'll start with the bronze medal, the 2004 Cardinals. Now, when you think 2004 postseason, what you immediately think of is the only team in Major League Baseball history to come back from 0-3 down in a series in the playoffs, and that was the Boston Red Sox. Down 0-3 to the Yankees in the ALCS. Red Sox turn it around, win 4 straight, and then they smoke this Cardinals team in the World Series. Just absolutely dust them. The 2004 St. Louis Cardinals had 105 wins, a plus 196 run differential. They had 3 guys on this team that put up MVP caliber seasons: Albert Pujols, Jim Edmonds, Scott Rowland. Larry Walker joined them in an August trade. They won the NLCS in 7 games against the Astros, and then just got attempting to stand in the way of history and be the team that kept the Red Sox from winning their first World Series since 1918. That's just where they've ended up in history. But that was a really, really good baseball team that lost to the Red Sox there, and I'm not sure the Red Sox would have lost to anybody on the planet. Just put the NL All-Stars together, and I'm pretty sure the Red Sox would have still won still won the World Series. They had that much momentum, and it was just that much. It's been almost, what is that? 86 years between World Series. You just came back from 0-3 down against one of the best rivalries in sports. There's just no way you're losing that World Series, right? Just no way. But that 2004 Cardinals team is really, really good, was really, really good. And it's a bit of a shame that the most prevalent way in which they'll be remembered is the fact that they were the team that the Red Sox beat after beating the Yankees in the ALCS. But that 2004 Cardinals team was incredible. The silver medal, the 2019 Houston Astros, boy oh boy was this baseball team good. 280 run differential. By one advanced metric, they had the best offense since the 1927 Yankees. And then they had the number 1 and 2 vote getters in the AL Cy Young and Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander. And you also had Zach Greinke, who I don't know if you know, but he's pretty good too. They got past the Rays and the Yankees in that playoffs. And then they were up 3-2 in the World Series, losing 2 games to the Nationals. They won 3 straight in Washington after losing the first 2 games to the to the Nationals. And then the Nationals again. The never say no Nationals came back and won the last 2 games of that series. But man, that was a good baseball team. And then the 2001 Mariners are the winningest single-season team in AL history. Ichiro hit 350 that season. 350. Like, how preposterous is that? 350. For what it's worth, this season, now DJ LeMahieu hit 364 this year, but 350, that would have been third on the batting average list this year, but you also had Brett Boone hit 37 home runs and drive in 141 runs. They were shaky in the divisional series and then just got smoked by the Yankees, buzzsawed by them in the 2001 ALCS. But man, just an incredible baseball team that, when you win 116 games, or you're on pace to win 116 games at 2020 Dodgers, if you don't win a World Series, it's pretty upsetting. And look at the Mariners weren't particularly close in that ALCS. The Dodgers, not particularly close in this NLCS. Save one inning, the Dodgers look really bad, actually. At least at the plate. Save that one inning. Well, that first inning and the ninth inning of the prior game. Thinking about that, and those four innings, from inning 7 of game 2 to inning 1 of game 3, they scored 18 runs in those 4 innings. To give you an idea of just how good this Dodgers offense can be. But they got a lot of work to do if they want to get to the World Series. But that's the podium. The Cardinals, the bronze, the Houston Astros with the silver, and the 2001 Mariners take the gold in the podium today in this edition of the Podium. Believe that is all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us on the JMULL Show on this Friday. If you haven't checked out what's going on over at 110sportsmedia.com, there's a lot of good stuff going on over there. I'll be back on Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, per usual. And Touchline Talk with Josh Doring, Around the Bases with Chris Brown. Both of those shows will be back on Tuesday. But, of course, I'll be back first on Monday. Same place, same time. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday, and I will see you after the weekend.